Okay, I'm live. I know that I saw Tammy. She was in my other one, so let's see if I can add her. It won't let me. I think I set up the other thing wrong. Like I said, this is me learning. So when you're learning something new, it's going to be a little bit interesting. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. And it's like we've got a viewer. So well, welcome. My name is Amelie, and you're on the Radical Souls podcast. This is me just starting out and kind of learning a little bit about how to do streaming from YouTube, and eventually I will be reaching out at branching out, I should say, and doing streams on Twitch, Facebook, IG, and just kind of having a multiple stream platform to just talk with people. And really, what I'm doing is learning a lot of stuff to kind of uh, advance my skills. Like, I always like to learn new things. So, um, hopefully, people will join me. I don't even know if I could share the stream. There's got to be a way. Oh, here it is. Share. Cool. Let's see if I can share this link. Oops. That's funny. So I'll just share it really quick. It's okay. If you are joining, just say hi. Look, Jonah's here. Hi, Jonah. I got my stream notes. I got some stories I'm going to tell. It's going to be pretty amazing. I love talking about this kind of stuff, so it's just really kind of cool. I don't even think I have access to any of my socials on here except for Discord, so that's fine. So welcome, and so we'll get started. So, like I said, this is Radical Souls podcast. This is a podcast that I kind of have been thinking about starting it for about 6 months, and so I've been sitting in it for a long time. I did a stream last week. It was just me kind of talking to the camera, getting a feel for how this works. And it was really kind of oriented towards more of a feminine princess to queen archetype, how that looks in that transformation. And in that discussion, I was kind of talking about balancing and foundation. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And so hopefully this will be a little bit more food for everyone that's watching. Not that the princess queen isn't food for men, but I typically would think that's more of a feminine thing, so a female thing. So about me, I've been hosting streams for quite some time now, and so like I said, I really want to branch out. Big part of the goal of what I'm doing here is to help people connect to their um, spiritual creator. And that is something that is a very big passion of mine. I've been working on it for many, many years now. Part of what we're going to talk about is being in that awakening and why it's so prevalent right now that people are really focusing on this and really trying to figure out how to navigate it. And so, hopefully, with my experiences and people sharing their experiences with me, we can kind of work together to get to that next level. Um, so today's stream is going to be on balance. And thank you, Jonah. Jonah shared it for me. You're a gem. Today's stream is going to be on balance and the balancing act of what it looks like on the inside and kind of balancing the external with the internal. So we're going to kind of be looking at this from different facets. And obviously there is almost a black and white of this male female, and it's so separated. or pain and pleasure, and it's super separated. And like an ebb where things are kind of um, holding back, and then a flow where things just kind of like bleh, all over the place. And before we get too far into that, a big part of this is going to be chaos, which isn't necessarily just like craziness. It's like literally, it is just unformed, something that is unformed, something that doesn't have structure, versus rigidity. And rigidity is like super structured. And so we kind of see that in our world kind of playing out with, um, uh, you know, um, liberalism and conservatism. And you kind of see the back and forth that go on between that. And it really is, once you see those for what they are, and you remove yourself from that, like kind of the battle of the back and forth, and really find where that thin line is. It's not a thin gay line, Jonah. It's a thin line of that narrow road that Jesus talks about in one of his parables. And we have the broad roads, and then you have this narrow road. So this is something that I have struggled with for a long time in my life. And one of the things that I would find is that I would be very extreme. So if I was really conservative, and I found it to be uncomfortable, or there was something that I didn't like about it, I would go on to the other side and be really liberal and free, and just like no boundaries whatsoever, instead of having just kind of putting myself into this box. I don't like to feel boxed in, and I don't like to feel super like without boundaries either. So you have to find this like really nice balancing act. And um, this is where the foundation is laid. You want to have a solid foundation. So, one of the first stories that I want to tell you guys is the story of my awakening. And it's a little uncomfortable, it's very embarrassing. To me, on a spiritual level, it's embarrassing because I found myself in something that completely devastated me to the core of who I was, to where I had to build back up, to the point of it was so earth shattering. I was like laying on my bed with all the curtains drawn, crying for God to give me some sort of relief. So it was 2011, and I had just lost my dad. And my dad was never a part of my life, but that I think was just kind of a catalyst into all the other things that were happening. It was very chaotic. One of the things that I had done, I was kind of a bit of a partier, and so I did go out a lot, and I did experience that kind of stuff pretty regularly. And then when I realized that, I think that there was something inside of me that was like, you know what, you need to get this under control. This is not how you want to live. Like there was a part of me that knew that it was not the way that I wanted to live. And so one of the things that I would do is I would party. And then this is where I am telling you guys the balance comes in. So I'm party, stay out all night, go just everywhere, do whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. And I would just shut myself off from the world, read the Bible, do Bible studies, and that's it. Like I spent hours and hours and hours doing it. And then at a certain period of time, um, I don't know, something would spark, and it would just be like, go back to party. And that would go on for months. And then I would go back for months to study. And I did this for probably about a good 5 to 8 years. I did that. And one of the things that I was studying while I was reading the Bible, I would listen to a radio broadcast. And the radio broadcast was a guy who was saying, get out of the churches, it's the whore of Babylon. It's Babylon. Get out of the churches. That's what the Bible is saying. And I was thoroughly convinced that this was true. And so um, here I am. I'm like, okay, like don't go in the churches. And but then I was like, well, what is in the churches? And so I would go to churches and I would participate for like a month or a few months, depending on where I was. And I would find that, yeah, it wasn't what I thought it was going, it wasn't what I needed. There was always something that was awry, something amiss. And I was like, okay, this is not for me. And so the whole idea of get out of the churches, end of the church age, started from the radio station was called Family Radio. They had traditional hymnals, they had really wholesome Bible stories. They would share scriptures of the week, and so you're memorizing scripture. And so there was just a lot of wholesome things that were a part of it. But one of the things that was also a part of it was this end times prediction. And the prediction was May 21st, 2011, and many of you may have heard about it. It was pretty rampant. There was rapture parties all over the place. I went to a rapture party because I was at this point of like, I've been party, party, party. I'm not like, I don't feel saved. I definitely am going to hell. Like I was in this internal judgment situation. And so it was really weird just being in that. And so I really feel for the people that went to a church, felt condemned, and never knew that there was a way out. And that is where my heart goes out to people like that because I know what that feels like and I've experienced it on a ugly whole level. Um, and so as I'm doing this, like when I look back at it, like I'm imbalanced. I'm like going back and forth, back and forth. I don't have this solid foundation. I don't have inner peace. I'm telling people like I feel like I'm going to go to hell. I feel like I'm condemned. I feel like I don't deserve the salvation. I'm not worth whatever happened. Nobody ever sat there and said, you are worth it. Jesus Christ went to the cross for you and he laid down his life for you because he loved you. Um, and maybe if somebody said that to me, I probably wouldn't have believed him anyways because of where I was at in my life. But um, so anyways, we have this May 21st, 2011 um, end times date where people are going to be raptured. And I'm just like, eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow I die. You know, I just had this this spirit of I'm not going to be chosen. And so I'm just going to like continue to drink, continue to do drugs, continue to do whatever it was because I knew that at the end of the day, like, or I thought I knew at the end of the day that I was just going to be left behind and, burnt up in horror, whatever. So, as the day came, it got really, really bad. And then it came and left and nothing happened. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Um, how old am I? I'm like 27 years old. I'm just a young thing. 27 years old and I'm like, "Oh, like what the heck is going on?" And so now I'm like having to pick up the pieces of, okay, like that was incorrect. And so now I'm very cautious about anybody that says any end times predictions, anything about raptures. I'm very particular about what they're saying because there really is no way for a man to know the day or the hour. And so, for whatever reason, that was like glossed over and was very painful when that day came and went. And he tried to do another date, and the world ends tomorrow. Jacobette told me so. Oh, Jacko, he's just trying to get out of the bout with Baho. So anyhow, so here I am. My father just died. This end times rapture business is like at the forefront of my head, and everything that I've believed to be a really solid foundation. Hi, Bajo. Just talking about you. Um, anyways, the end times thing is going on, and there's just chaos everywhere in my relationship with my now ex. There was chaos there. There's chaos in my like spiritual life. There's chaos in my physical life with my dad just dying. And so all of these things are bubbling up and really just shook me. Like my foundation was just shattered. Um, I I know what it's like to have a totally terrible shattered foundation. And so again, I feel for people that go through it, and maybe I don't experience it on the same level, but after that, all these things started happening, and finally I just kind of broke down and I was like, God, like I don't know what else to do. I'm like, I have nothing. I'm torn down, complete despair, shut all the blinds, just cried on my bed like nonstop. Like I didn't know what else to do. I was just like, just felt really empty and like there was nothing for me to hold on to. And it was just like, what do you want me to do? Like, I have no idea. So when it comes to foundations, this is how I understand it is I didn't have a solid foundation. I didn't have a solid foundation of or an earthly father to like guide me in a right direction. I didn't have a foundation of a church or somebody in a spiritual like kind of a spiritual guru or spiritual leadership position that would be able to kind of help coax me into finding some sort of foundation that was well enough. And so it really was between me and God. And um, later on, I had to admit that um, I was angry at God and I don't trust God. And I still battle with that a little bit, but now I'm a little, now that I've done a lot more work of not trying to take charge of situations, not trying to be a perfectionist, not trying to look a certain way, that now, because I've let those things go, I'm better able to allow God to to take me in His arms and be able to rest in Him, because that is really where we need to be, and that foundation is laid. Christ should be our foundation. He is the cornerstone. And if you don't have that, and you start to experience all the chaos that's in the world or what you perceive as tyranny or whatever, hi, Huckle, whatever you experience as tyranny, then you're going to start to really rely on that foundation. And this is where, like, I'm in the world, but not of it, is stemming from. You're a foundation of something that's not of this world. It doesn't make any sense to people that are looking at it from an earthly perspective. If you're looking at it from a natural earthly perspective, chances are it's not going to make sense. Aw, thanks for joining us, Bajo. Um, hi, Port Bear. So, as I so my the first thing that I had to really address was the addiction part of it and why the addiction part of it was so prevalent. So this could be any addiction, but for this time in my life, it happened to be cocaine and whiskey, and those things were things that I gave up once I kind of was like, okay, God, like steer me in the right direction. So I put myself through a drug and alcohol course, and I knew that that wouldn't be quite enough of what I needed. And so I asked for an intensive talk therapy as well. Um, the cool thing about the talk therapy, and I think that God just like gave this woman to me to be able to just like sit and talk to her about whatever, was that we worked on was actually experienced in not only nature but epigenetic theory. So I kind of talked about that a little bit last night as we were hanging out. And I'll post that to my YouTube channel so that people that don't have IG can watch that. But the epigenetic um, reasoning by why I felt the way I did about some things, because some things just didn't make any sense. I was looking at the world, and this is 2011, so this is at a time when Obama is going to be elected or whatever, and people are running around and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's elect him for a third term," and I'm like, Constitution kind of says no, but whatever. So, um, yeah, yeah, Port Bear. Jonah's my homie. So then I was really looking at the reaction of people and looking at it from an objective point of view. Like, it's not me, it's them. And I was like, okay, these people are operating, and this is so crazy. 2011, I'm like, these people are operating that like they're wanting to go into slavery. They want to be enslaved. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, do you tell this is a question I asked her. I was like, do you ever feel like the people out there, like, why are they wanting to be enslaved? Like, we're a free people under the Constitution. Why are they wanting to be enslaved? It's almost like they're the Hebrews that wanted to go back to Egypt after they had been out in the wilderness, and they were like had this really supernatural experience of being released from Egyptian rule and were able to go find their promised land. It's like, but these people, they have their promised land, like they're already there, but they want to return to an enslaved position. I don't understand that. And she didn't really have a lot of to say about it, but that's just something, I'm just explaining, like, this is some of the things that I was really working on in my head of like, why, what is going on? And this is part of also my awakening. So my awakening started in 2011. I found out I was pregnant with my son now, and that totally shifted. And for anybody that's had like that became parents in the last 10 years, or um, maybe even before, it's an intense experience. You have an interesting connection. There's a different energy that happens when you have a new life come in. You look at the world differently. Men, like, it's almost like you go from being slightly selfish to like almost just selflessly giving yourself to a child. And there's a big energetic shift into becoming a parent. And a parent, um apparently. And so as all that's happening, I'm starting to dive into fluoride. I'm starting to dive into vaccines. I don't know how you can say that with shots. Not whiskey. um, to that, to like the stuff in the water, and the harmful stuff that's in purchased things that you use around the house. And so I became very natural and started working with all the kind of stuff. Um, and so as I'm doing this awakening, I'm like looking at, okay, obviously I want a homestead. And so I started doing that. So I'm setting a foundation of learning skills to be able to make it through whatever I perceived at the time. It was very physical realm threats. And um, while that's, maybe it's important for people to go through those things in their lives, is kind of go through those experiences. I don't advise just looking at the physical threats and trying to make a physical barrier to prevent yourself from having to deal with some of the things, because we're going to be talking about things that are transhumanist, post-humanist, and what that looks like from an earthly realm, and then what it looks like from a spiritual realm, because there is two different factions going on here. um yeah. Port Bear says corners on tables look different now. Everything is different, at least for me. Yeah, you start to see things as threats when before maybe it wasn't like that. Um, and so through this whole experience, and maybe I don't, maybe people can comment if you're watching this after the live, or if you're in the chat right now, you can comment on it. But when you have an awakening, you start to view freedom a little bit differently. And then if you're looking at freedom from an earthly realm versus like a freedom liberty from a spiritual perspective, like these two different perspectives, they're similar, but they're also not, right? Because one is seen, one is unseen. And so you've got these two different realms that you're kind of going back and forth in. And that's why I say, like, we're looking to find the balance. And I believe that humans are the balance between the spiritual and the earthly realm. And we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. We are multidimensional beings. Speakeasy Bear came in from IG too. What's up? Cool. Jonah's my homie. Always spreading the love. Um, okay. So throughout this whole process, I'm really focusing because I'm doing homesteading, I'm doing canning, gardening, um, you know, doing I was so I was so freaked out in 2012 that I had a at-home birth kit. I was watching like videos of Patriot Nurse of like if you have to give birth outside of the hospital, because I was seriously convinced that there would be no hospitals, that we wouldn't be able to go in, that they would be shut down for whatever reason, which is interesting because like what 10 years later we experienced quarantine. And so and so it's like it's just like a really interesting thing to kind of fear it, in 2011, 2012, and then experience it in 2021, 20 and 21, 2020 and 2021. So to experience it at a later date and really have this, because you've already been through the fear of that happening, kind of have this like outside perspective of watching it happen and really being removed from it, versus when I thought it was going to happen, like it wasn't happening yet. And so that was just a kind of an interesting thing. So um, really, instead of working on the inward issues that I needed to work on when I had my awakening, I was focusing on all the outward issues of not having food, not having water, not having a place to live, not having security, and really being in this fear state, this despair fear state. And so if you're looking outwardly at the world and you're trying to solve the world outward problems, and you're not working on those inward issues that are going on that you should be working on, that's where we get in the hang up. That's where mentoring and coaching can kind of take it from, okay, here's where your issue, where you think your issues are. But let's like turn that inside and see where it actually is, because the kingdom of heaven is within. Like our brains are amazing, our hearts are just as strong as brains or stronger. Our um our emotions are very, very strong, and that comes from our stomach area. And so we have like all of this energy, like, your mental energy that attaches up, and then you have your heart energy, which is also just a second brain, possibly stronger and smarter than your actual like gray matter. So I really wanted to talk into really looking at some of these inward issues that we should be resolving. Um, and then one of the things that I put down here in my notes was seeking an illusion that spiritual reality is outside of ourselves. So, what does that mean? Spiritual reality is outside of ourselves. So, our spiritual reality, we want to think like, oh, it's up in the heavens. Okay. Um, so, is that a physical place? Uh, it's an unseen realm. And Jesus says that quite a bit in the Bible. So, we've got the things that are seen and the things that are unseen. So when Nicodemus came and was talking to Jesus and he's like, how can I be born again? Am I supposed to like be in my mother's womb again and be reborn? Like, what are you talking about?" Jesus is like, "If you can't understand the things that are spiritual, how can I even have this? How can we even have a conversation? I can't even explain the things to you because you don't understand. You're looking at the outward world that is the natural and not at the inward spiritual world that you actually have." Um, you guys feel free to ask questions as we go or make a comment to add to the conversation. That's really what I'm here for. And hopefully, you guys are enjoying the discussion that we're having right now. Um, so I have a couple more stories to tell you, but I just wanted to really kind of go into this where I came from as far as my awakening, and then how that relates to having that foundation and finding that balance. And so I still dealt with some imbalances in the way that I thought, the way that because then I get out and I'm like, I'm a Democrat. And then I realized like, oh my gosh, Obama is like a liar. And then I go from that to being a conservative and like voting Republican and being really like big Ron Paul fan and um, really kind of grabbing on to these libertarian ideas, but not really like participating too much. So I went from like extreme to extreme to extreme extreme. And that's where I'm saying that this imbalance is if you're experiencing that, going back and forth, or maybe just sticking on one side and not like really viewing the other. We really want to find ourselves in that center foundation. Very relatable. You're enjoying it. Good. Good. I'm glad, you guys. Um, so when we are looking at some of the illusions, time is one of those illusions, in my opinion. So time is definitely an illusion. We do experience it on this physical realm. It does go in a linear wave, but there's all these anomalies that you find that time is not linear. Um, Sometimes time can seem to speed up. Like if you're on a vacation, it seems like it goes by super fast. And then all of a sudden it's like that way. And then if you're at work and you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't like this job, and you're like kind of clock watching, it seems like it goes on really slow. We almost I know that somebody said that, "Oh, no, manipulating time is Luciferian," but how can you explain those things? Is that Luciferian for me to, like, realize, "Oh my gosh, time is, like, going by really, really slow," or that it's speeding up? Why can't I go to God and ask him to reverse time or slow time down? There's instances in the Bible of where the sun stops or the day goes dark, and everything seems to just be put on pause. And so how do you explain that? Is that Luciferian? I mean, that's a real question. Is it Luciferian of that to for God to stop like stop the time? Um, and I just don't agree with that. I think that we as we explore why we're here in this realm and what our real purpose is and our awakening process that's going to be become more prevalent and happen on a faster scale, we'll find that we are actually um, incredible beings. I always think when people use buzzwords, they automatically don't know what they are talking about. Oh, yeah, like just dismissing something as like Luciferian, or I mean, that's a quick way to shut somebody down. Um, like I can think of several other words um, that would shut people down, like insulting somebody. It's definitely not a way to convince somebody. So we really should be a little bit more cognizant of how we're speaking to others. And for me, when people do say things like that, I'm not here to antagonize people. I'm here to listen, consider, and then teach whatever the wisdom is in there. And it's not me that I'm doing it because, uh, like, I was a really messed up young lady. Not to say that I'm like a terrible person, but I've been through a lot of experiences that aren't necessarily the most elegant or beautiful that people would associate with women. Like, I've just been through a lot of experiences that are um, not generally positive, but it's part of our culture that I was experiencing those things. So I try to be really careful about dismissing somebody's idea. I'm like, "Oh, okay, think about where they're at. Okay, that person believes this and this is their life," and watch them and their actions and how that plays out, and then watch how they speak to others and how they speak about themselves. Like, you can kinda tell a lot about people when you do that. Um, and I'm like, I just wanna be just this beacon of love and compassion so that people can be, um, feel healed in that. If it is noon, but you didn't know what time it was, would it still be noon? I mean, time is a very interesting one. Maybe we'll do a whole stream on time. I'll put a note down. Maybe we can talk about time and we'll just kind of go over some interesting stuff about time because time is definitely not linear. We've definitely got this dimensional stuff going on. And so yeah. So as I'm going through my whole process, and maybe some of you guys relate to it, and I imagine that you do because there is definitely a lot of people that when I went out on the Bear Trail, which was this journey across America twice, maybe three times, I don't know, it was like 50,000 miles across across our great country in the last 2 years, to visit people and really get to experience um, people that were like-minded and that were a little bit more spiritually advanced than I think a lot of other groups were. And that's how I think about my um, my bear homesteading community, which is, a lot of watchers here. Um, I know that there's other people that come in here, but just kind of explaining just basics there. So I have to tell you this really cool thing. So I'm like really contemplating and meditating, and I was reading about freedom and really what that means. Because we can say, "Oh, I want freedom," but it's to do my will, and that's it. And while you can do that, there you're kind it can kind of come to bite you. So in doing your own will, you're not in balance with um, heaven and earth. It's almost like you're just more earthly than you are heavenly, and we really want to find that narrow path, that fine line of, okay, this is right, and you'll know when you're off the path, because you want to stay on that path. It is difficult, but it's not that it's not doable. So, as we're walking on this path, um, being earthly versus being heavenly, being earthly is like you're building an empire. So that's what I did. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be protected from this. And I didn't trust God enough to provide that for me. I was very anxious. I was a very anxious woman. I didn't trust men. The men that I had, especially in that situation I was talking about before, had let me down. My dad did, and it became apparent when he died of how big of an impact that was. And I had to deal with those emotions of not having him around, not having somebody give me a picture of what it was to have an earthly male role model that gave you true love. and then to have my my spiritual like information, or my spiritual like what I was kind of counting on of like, oh, okay, I was really comparing myself against that, and thinking I was going to go to hell. And so it was a really ugly moment of like where my foundation was just like shattered. Okay, you don't have Jesus because obviously you've been saying it for a long time and you know it, you don't. And nobody could tell me, how do I get there? And so it was a really long journey and a really long process. And so even after like I was like, okay, I'll quit my addiction to these things, I gained a new addiction, and that was work. So from 2014 until 2020, I determined that I was going to buy a house. I was going to get a degree. So I got a bachelor's degree. I did all the things. Um, house, degree, car, and then a job. So I had a career. Let's see. I'm really glad sometimes God utterly prevents me from executing my own will. I'm retarded. He's not. Okay, so here's how crazy this essentially got. Um, so I got all these things, and by the end of it, I was going to the ER for EKGs because I was having panic attacks. I was thinking I was having a stroke or a heart attack or something, and I'm like 35, 36. And I was like, "This is ridiculous. Why is this happening?" So it wasn't until 2019 that I really started doing this whole inventory of like, why am I not happy? Why do I graduate and like not feel any pride? Why do I get have this house and then not feel anything? Like, why am I not feeling rewarded? And it's because I was doing my will, not God's will. I was doing my will and seeking these things to give me comfort and safety, because inwardly I had no comfort and safety. And so this is an experience where I'm showing you that the outward, um, looking outward to solve the outwardly problems instead of solving the inwardly problems, um, kind of like manifests and shows itself. And it wasn't until I had all the things that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I definitely need to relook at this. I'm not obviously not on the right path here. So I had to get rid of all those things. And it was really difficult that I did that because almost didn't want I almost there was a portion of me that didn't want to. I was like, I worked so hard for this. You know, I put a lot of effort and hours into it. And it's just like Jonah was saying, is that God was kind of showing me along the way with like my blood pressure and going to the ER and going to the urgent care, um, that I wasn't on the right path. He was trying to show me, no, you're not doing it right. You're not on this path. You're over here, and I need you to be here. I need you to come be here because God is within. So just remember that God is within. So here I am, like trying to solve all these problems outwardly and not doing the inward work. So what is freedom? Um, a lot of people have like that was freedom. I was free to go make all those decisions and efforts and build whatever. And it really is when it comes down to it, when I look at the foundation and the balance, Ecclesiastes, I think it's 3:1, where it's like there's a time and a season, um and all those things. You guys probably heard that. I can probably pull it up here in a second because I'm going to pull up another Bible verse. But having the freedom to go out and do that. So Solomon was able to go out and do all those things. He did everything that he could think of to do, and he found it to be unrewarding. Um, that there was something that was missing or lacking in him exercising that free will to go out and do those things. So we have a tendency as um, just kind of as earthly beings to think that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling it from within that something needs to happen. I need to be a little bit more secure and safe. And so we'll go out and try to make that happen in the world. We'll put a fence up. We'll buy the house to have the homestead, and or we'll buy all this grocery and can it. And that's something that I did. I had my freezer was always stocked. I always had tons of toilet paper. I always had tons of things in my pantry. I had seeds. I was actively finding places to grow stuff. I was always looking at new recipes of what can I make that is going to be in this Mad Max apocalyptic scenario that's going to give me comfort. What am I going to do? I still have my candles. I have a ton of candles that, in the event that the grid goes down, I'm going to have all these candles and I'll be able to share those with people. Like, I'll be the point person, and really kind of thinking that that was going to be my security. I am live 580 bears in the house. Love it. Um and so that is such an outwardly trying to solve something outwardly for an inward problem. So, I asked again, like, what is freedom? Freedom is to be able to go out and do those problems and experience that. And it almost, if you experience that and you learn the lesson from it, once you come back and you're realizing that, oh my gosh, I made a big mistake. That was not the way that I should have gone. Um, oh, Jerusha. I had to share this on Maritime Times. Oh, thanks, babes. Um, so as I'm doing all this stuff, now when I look back at it, because I'm looking back at my life and seeing the decisions that I made and why I made them, I realized that instead of trusting in God for the security and comfort and safety that I was desiring, I was so anxious and panicky that I started like erecting this empire to give me comfort. And then even after I did it, which is, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, after buying a house. And and then looking at it, I'm like, oh, I am not trusting in God. I'm I actually don't trust God if I'm doing these things. And what would it look like if I did trust God? What would that look like? And how could I make that um more prevalent? What do I have to do to stop trying to take care of all this outwardly stuff and really make it to where no matter where I'm at, if I'm like in the middle of the woods, in the middle of a city, anywhere, how do I make it to where I'm going to be feeling like I'm on a stable foundation, that I'm balanced, that I'm grounded, that I know that I'm on the right path, that I'm following God's will? Because this is where it really does come into play of if you're following your will, you might experience some of this dissatisfaction that I was experiencing. Abigail, I'm so excited. Hi, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying. Jonah said he is, so that is a good sign. Um, as I am really like looking at these things, I want to talk about freedom, and I might do a whole nother stream on freedom, and um, I'm just going to kind of really consider it. But I did take a note. I have a note here. It says, true freedom is a kind of ever expanding spaciousness that arises spontaneously inside you as you come to understand how deeply victimized you are by your own core beliefs. And I'll repeat that. True freedom is a kind of ever expanding spaciousness that arises spontaneously inside you as you come to understand how deeply victimized you are by your own core beliefs. So let that sink in. That's that that was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Like we create our own prisons. We'll create our own empires and think that we're like doing ourselves a service or somebody else's service, like we're going to be the hero. And it really isn't. It's fearless bear. Aw. Um I felt the same way after I accomplished everything by the time I had it all crashing down in 2020, had a house and toys and empire and yet nothing at all. It's so funny because if you are if you've ever read the Bible or at least heard of Ecclesiastes, it's all in there. It's not like it's new. It's not like it's new. It isn't. And nothing is new, and it sounds so cliche and we can dismiss it or whatever, but it truly is this way. Awesome. I hope you had a happy birthday, Jerusha. Um, so this statement on what true freedom is and realizing when you're in putting yourself in a prison and and I felt that. I was like, I feel like I have a ball and chain. I have this mortgage, I have this car loan, I have all this debt from trying to achieve something that I thought that I wanted, that was going to give me comfort, that was going to give me safety, and I didn't feel any of those things. Um, oh, Samwise Bear. Thanks for joining, Samwise. I hope you guys are enjoying. Um, I estimate that these are probably gonna be, an hour and a half to 2 hours as I'm talking about these things. So if things do come up and we're talking about it, definitely bring it up because I'd like to share, some of the chat. I think that'll be a nice integration into what I'm talking about. Okay, so the great awakening has been happening and none of us can deny it. I've heard so many stories from all the travels that I've been through of people talking about them going through awakenings. And especially 2020 was there was almost because of the quarantine, there was this catalyst of really discovering deep spiritual truths about your situation that you were in. And so maybe you were making some moves to adjust it and fine tune it. But really having this solid foundation, I really can't stress it enough of having a strong foundation within yourself because God is within, um, of having that core of Christ being the one to choose you as a brother and a sister through adoption into the heavenly realm by coming down here on earth. This is the part where we link with the spirit. So we've got these two dimensions, or more, because it says heavenly places. So we've got these two dimensions. We've got our earthly realm, and then we've got other things that maybe we don't even know about yet. And so we're the linking part. So the best way that I had it described to me, and I wish I could remember who said this, it may have been Justin Paul Abraham, was we are here on this realm, but this is not the only place that we as humans or chosen children of God, of Zion, children of Zion, that this is not the only place that we could go. So we have not only dominion here, but we have dominion in these heavenly realms. We're able to go back and forth. It's only these things that we think that we can solve ourselves outwardly that are really holding us back and almost still that ball and chain, like I was explaining to you of how I felt about my mortgage or my car loans or whatever it was. These were all chaining me down to this realm, chaining me from experiencing that strong trust with God. And the Great Awakening or the apocalypse or whatever you want to call it, it has been happening for quite some time now. Vanity, oh vanity, vexation of spirits. Exactly, Bible reading there. Um, so how do you know that you're following God's will as opposed to your own? Well, one is you can ask him. That's one thing. Two, I felt it in a dissatisfaction of what I was doing. It was like, I'm doing this, but it doesn't feel satisfying. There's no, it's, I don't feel soothed in my soul. Like, yeah, I'm taking care of the basic needs, but there's something more that I desire, and it's not. There's something that's not being met. I know that there's something more here. Um, I got my primo bear doggy in the bathtub. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Um, so me, I constantly am doing inventories of where I'm at. Like, okay, um, is this where God is leading me? And so I'll kind of like branch out, and then if it doesn't ring like, okay, this is where I need to be, then I'll kind of step back. So one of the things is, I was traveling all over the place, traveling all over the place, and then there was something that happened, and I was like, nope, I need to stay in the Pacific Northwest and really um, create the bonds here with these people, so that I'm building that community. Um, what else? The other thing that you can do to really connect to God is to meditate. And sometimes that means just kind of going out into a space of nature, if that is a place where you feel that you'll be the most connected, but really sitting in silence and prayer with God, really sitting and wanting to have the Holy Spirit just pour all over you and just envelop you to give you comfort. Like, you don't want comfort from yourself, because you can go out and buy something and be comforted for a period of time, but to have Christ and the Holy Spirit be there for your comfort, then that's quite another thing. Um, and there's nothing like having that comfort versus you going out and buying like a steak dinner. That's lovely. It's awesome, you know. I love a good steak like no everyone else that loves steak, but that's not necessarily my mission, is to have just the best steak all the time. In fact, like sometimes it's saying no to all those earthly pleasures to find yourself. But I recommend meditating. And there's a simple meditation that you can do, and it involves breath work. You want that ruach, you want the ruach, the breath, the spirit to be breathed in, because that is our life, you know. You want to have that breath. So that's where meditation comes in. So definitely breath work, and talking to God, and telling him like, I want to be closer to you. Show me what is your will and what you want me as your servant to do. Thank you so much for the birthday, Love Copper. I'm so honored to be here at the beginning of your new adventure. Thank you so much. I love you guys. You guys are my other family. um, so definitely meditating, and really working to kind of clear and connect, and not relying on the things that you can do for yourself, but what you can do for God. Like, is this going to be for the glory of God? And sometimes you're doing things in secret where people don't even know that you're helping them, but God, the Holy Spirit has been telling you like, okay, go in and help this person or people or whatever. Um, so as we're like really going through this back and forth, I think we're always going to experience that. It's just our perspective is going to change. And um, we're working. in a world that when I started my awakening, um, merging with machines was a part of what was going to be happening. And I was very much against that. And I still quite am. And I definitely don't recommend merging with machines. And because I don't think that we need it. And so you're going to start to see people do that though. And don't be discouraged if you can. Just don't be discouraged. This is not, you have consent. So recognize that you do have consent over your being, that we are connected not only in this realm but in spiritual realms, and that is where we're going to find that that technology is connected. So the technology that's on this realm right now, to me, in my opinion, is a replication of what is happening in a spiritual, in the spiritual or heavenly realms. And so you see things like iCloud or Ethernet cables. Sorry, that made me laugh. Ether, or just kind of like really think about the internet, and um, trying to think of other things. But we have, oh, hi, Snow White. But we have this really amazing technology already inside of us. One of the things that I have been really contemplating and thinking of is when I was younger, I remember, oh, we only use like 10% of our brain capacity. And I'm like, 10% of our brain capacity? What happens to the other 90%? What is that? Like, is it just dormant? You're telling me that that's just subconscious, or what is that? Where does that come into play if we are only using 10% of our capacity? And so it's almost like we have this dormancy that hasn't been awakened, or we don't know how to awaken it, or maybe it's being hidden from us. And now we're in this period of apocalypse, which is a great revealing. And I don't think anybody here is going to disagree when I say that we are in an apocalypse. That means that the truth is being revealed in a great way. And I think part of that is going to be some of the technologies that we're going to be able to perform in our bodies as we have them now. We don't need to merge with technology to experience the beautiful technology that we have already been born with, that God has given us. We were created in the image of God. We don't need help from machinery. We don't need help from AI. We don't need any of that. We have it already inside of ourselves. So this is where like transhumanism and posthumanism, sorry, postmodernism, posthumanism kind of comes in, because a lot of the times you look at maybe like Ray Kurzweil and what he thinks is going to happen, where AI is going to take over and human intellect is just going to falter. But we can access the heavenly courts, we can access the heavenly realms. And the more that we do that through meditation, through connection and prayer, and being together with people who have the same desires, because we have dominion over this world. We are given responsibility to I mean, Adam was given responsibility to name everything on this realm. And so if everything is named by us and we have dominion here, then we definitely need to recognize what that means, what responsibility that entails, and the authority that we have in our condition that we are in now, and really start to go through to that next step. And so this is where foundation really comes into play, because you have to have a firm foundation in yourself. Otherwise, you can get lost. You can get taken. And I'm not saying this is a fear thing, but I definitely recommend just having a really strong, firm foundation in a creator God, that you are going to, that He is guiding you, and that He is wanting to take your hand and take you into these spiritual realms. So this is going to get a little bit heavy, heavy gravy because it just is. Um, but because we have this technology inside of us. So, what does the technology look like? Some of the technology is joy, and joy is a simple emotion, right? But it's so powerful. Anger is powerful, but it's at a lower vibration. Joy is very powerful. It's a strong vibration. It rings higher. Love is up there with joy. So love and joy and compassion and peace, like all of those things ring at a higher vibration. And it's not that, oh, I need to ring at the highest vibration and then I'll get to the next level. That's not how it works. Um, these are all good things to know about how our body functions. It's part of the technology that we have within us, but it's not the step by step guide of how to go to heaven. I don't, it just doesn't work like it doesn't work like that. Um, there is a humble servitude when you do go to God, that you want to be of service to Him. And that is part of what I think is the holy grail of being um, in our bodies now. And you guys can disagree. I would love to hear your comments in the chat, because I'm always looking. I don't have a problem. These are really, they're really advanced meat to kind of chew on. It's not milk for sure. It's very much meat, and it does take us to another level. Um, One of the things that I did mention here is if you think about a beautiful music piece, you have this rise and then you have a fall and then you have a rise. It's almost taking you on this journey. And that's how your life is. And it's almost always going to be that way. You're always going to have like these situations that arise that you have to kind of deal with. But the way that you deal with them is going to be different once you get more connected with your creator. Is it 11:11? Oh my gosh, 11:11 on on the East Coast. Snow White Bear is here. Yes, I do agree. Synchronicities are just the beginning. Yeah. So, synchronicities are almost like confirmations, but there is definitely a way to kind of seriously connect. 2212. That's crazy. It's 12/22, 2022 right now, Jonah Bear. And it's 2212. Okay, bad truth or news. Um, Interesting. Okay. So, once we are able to kind of step outside of our prison, or our prison of core beliefs, as we can maybe name it, and we start to really let go of that stuff, um, a big thing, a big message, and maybe a lot of you are experiencing this year as well, is letting go of things that you have in your life. So you'll notice that if you've accumulated a lot of things, and um, maybe not to the point of um, being a hoarder, but almost having these hoarder tendencies, like there is emotion that is attached to that. And so really letting go of that, and challenging those things, and changing them and transmuting them into something else, is a good practice for you, especially if you've been kind of getting nudged in that direction to let those things go. So, the really cool thing about letting things go is it allows new things to move in. So, a new something is going to move in once you let something go. It's just the flow of life. And the more that you hold on to something, the more stagnant you're going to become. And it's just going to sit there and accumulate. But you want to have a flow. You guys are having fun. Okay. So, as far as the transhumanism stuff goes, the post-humanism stuff goes, where people will be merging with machines. I don't think it's without a shadow of a doubt it's going to happen. Like I think it will happen, and you'll see it, and people will consent to it. You have a choice. Your no is so strong. You have a choice to consent. They can't force you to do anything, and if they do, it's not. And you said no, it comes back. Like God is protecting. Like that is just a universal law. It's a natural law for a reason, the law of consent. So you don't have to consent to those things. You don't have to merge. You can still maintain your humanity. And yeah, it might get a little difficult, but God always gives you a remedy and He always gives you a way out. And it may not look the most beautiful at the time, but it will be rewarded if you stand firm and be in trust with Him. I was a big hoarder before I was saved. Yeah, I mean, and there was probably a lot of emotions that were tied to it. And it was still like an act of going through those emotions. Um, it really does come down to thinking that you needed to have these things to be okay. And, that's a big part of materialism. And it's difficult to kind of work through for a lot of people because they have so much mental trauma. But if you're having a hard time um, and you maybe need some help, just send me a DM or an email and we can kind of talk about it and see if we can help get you to a point of where you can start letting some things go. And it could be something small. You can start with your closet and start with your room and then working out of that and then start looking at other areas. I have a lot of letters from my childhood thinking about letting them go. Samwise is falling asleep. Oh my gosh, good night. Um, yeah, and you could probably scan them and put them into something smaller if you have a lot of them and you don't think that it's going to be, or you can bury it somewhere, like a little time capsule and go get it later. um, so as we are moving from this awakening, because I think a lot of people are experiencing that. A lot of people definitely experienced it during quarantine. And since quarantine has kind of died away, there's almost this shift of energy where people are kind of like, oh, it's back to normal now until the next thing. And then the next thing will happen and you'll see kind of a panic. And then there's always this ebb and flow and you don't have to consent to it. I've been not consenting to medical tyranny for a long time. I remember back in the day when my son was born, I was terrified that I would have the conversation him getting um, of him getting vaccinated, and so I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not going to do that. But I was really worried that they were going to say, no, you can't do whatever, and then there was going to be a problem. None of that happened. It was all a mental uh, it was all a mental thing that was in my mind, a story that I had believed would be true. Nobody said anything. They were like, "Oh, okay." Nope. "Oh, all right." Um, the pediatrician was like, "Oh, I really recommend you blah 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 blah," and I was like, "No, we're not going to do that." "Oh, why not?" "Well, if you really want to know, it's because of this." Um, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, no, well, that's just a normal thing." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't just really don't support abortion." And, so she finally, like, relented after I was like, um after I was like, "Well, I don't know about this, like, you call yourself a medical professional." God bless her. Um, but just know that as we kind of watch the world, because it will happen, and we can get together and ask in the court of heaven that we petition that these things don't happen, and you'd be surprised on what will happen. Prayer works. Um, Going to the court of heaven works, and it's a matter of us actually doing it. So I think that we kind of do experience, maybe there's like a sleep or a sloth or maybe a veil that is over us where we're not doing these things. We're not using our um, authority properly. And it's just a matter of, we see it all the time with the Constitution. The Constitution says one thing, the government does another, but the people don't like stand up and say, "Oh no, you can't do that." If they did, then you would see a lot more people kind of back down and do that stuff. Yeah, we aren't using our voice, but it's not using our voice. Like I used to think, oh, I have to go to um, the state capitol or I have to go to the federal capitol or wherever it was. I used to think, oh, yeah, you have to go and do that, like go and protest or whatever. Like, does that really do anything? Maybe it sways some people in a certain way, but then they're like, oh, they're doing this. So then we have to pivot and do this and still get our agenda done. But what's more powerful is that if we get together and we go to the court of heaven, because that is a higher authority than any earthly court or anything like that, if we go to the court of heaven and we take our petitions there and use our voice in that court, that higher court, then those petitions will get filled and God will gladly do it. If you remember, um, Satan can go into that court as well, and he can petition, and he does that over and over again, and his petitions get granted, and we're like stuck here with the result because we're not going to that court. I think that God would probably, or Jesus would probably listen to us more than he would listen to Satan. Um, And so we just have to kind of recognize that we do have power here. And it's not our own power, but we do have a certain authority to be responsible for what happens here. I love you too, Bible reading. Thank you for joining. Um, oh, you had a rough day? Aw. All right, much love. Um, so just recognize that as we're going through this next part of technology, AI, you're starting to see it, metaverse, um, robots, um, AI, definitely like in Siri and predictive text and all that stuff. You're starting to see it occur more and more. A lot of people using social media and AI is learning from that. You're starting to see all that happen, but just remember that there is no computer that is greater than a human being. Like we are more, we com- computers, AI, doesn't matter how hard it tries, it's never going to have that emotional connection. It's not going to be able to go from earth into heaven. It doesn't have this ability to go back and forth in between that. And we're in out of balance by just remaining in this physical plane. Once we really discover that we can have this access to the heavenly places and go to those heavenly places and petition what we need in those heavenly places, and really work to complete that on earth as it is in heaven for the glory of God. Once we realize that we're able to do that, then we will realize that none of these AI, none of the fear things that happen on this realm, um, none of the threats, anything like that will affect us, and they won't. I've seen it like in the short period of time that I'm talking about from 2011 until now. Um, Nobody came and took my child away because I didn't vaccinate him. All right. Good night, Jonah. Port Bear says it seems like it's easier to pick a team left or right. Either way, we were serving the law of man and blending into the herd. Exactly. Well, and that's what it is. It's like, and at the time, maybe it felt like it was the right thing to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the right thing to do. We we shouldn't have to choose a team. Like there's only one uh I mean, I guess there is a team like Team God. like, um that I would want to be on that team. It's a disservice to think that um this outwardly stuff that we're trying to kind of grab onto and hold on to and have a foundation in and then just watch it be sand um, is a way to resolve your spiritual issues because I think once you really work on those that spiritual connection and being in that service to God that we find that that's really the way that it best plays out. Okay, I have a Bible verse that I want to um, talk about, and it is Hebrews 13:3. Okay, Hebes, oh, sorry, 13:5. So this one is Hebrews 13:5 says, "Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have, for you've said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee." So, as we're learning to like let go and remove ourselves from the desire to have things in this world, we're wanting to really dive in and lay into that trust with God. Thanks, Jerusha. Jerusha is still here. She said she's still here. And this comes like the manna from heaven has always fascinated me. Like, what is that manna from heaven? Like, what does that look like? What is that? And how is that playing out in feeding us? So this is that spiritual food. So we almost have these we have this earthly being and we have our soul and then what is feeding that soul. And I think when you get that nagging sensation or that dissatisfaction with where you're at in life, or you get that something's not right, I don't feel fulfilled moment, is because you're not eating that manna from heaven, and it's always coming through us. So anybody here has experienced a synchronicity where something happens and like it's happening all over the place. Like you say a word and then all of a sudden that word is just popping up everywhere and people are simultaneously having this experience. Um so like those things, that's how easy it is to kind of get fed manna from heaven. And it's when you hear things that you could like I when I read the Bible, it's intense. So when I read the Bible and I'm reading the Gospels, is so intense because I'm not just reading. Some people will be like, "Oh yeah, I read the Bible front to back. Nothing happened." When I read the Bible, I'm like, I'm getting so many truth drops in this like one passage. It's almost hard for me to continue reading it because it's constant. It's a constant like, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh." Like it's almost like your soul's getting fed. Like this is really intense. It's a very intense experience for me, and I don't know if anybody's ever experienced it like that, but I'm looking at it like, "Oh my gosh, Jesus like blessed and broke this bread," or like Jesus is healing all these people, or he brought somebody back from the dead, or whatever it is, like all these extreme miracles that he's performing to the glory of God, for the glory of the heavenly kingdom that is being built. It is incredible to think that he says, "Oh, you'll be able to do these things and more." Um, and that's why I'm saying that I like part of me is working to like prep not only myself because this is like so fascinating to me. And I'm hoping that as I send out this message, people are sending me back information of like, oh, yeah, this is happening, or that is happening, or did you notice this, or did you notice that? And having that like nice uh, community conversation, that testimony with each other, that we're like teaching each other stuff. But that we not only have this like incredible technology within us, but like our soul is getting fed. I don't even think that we would have, I don't even think like, not to say that breatharians are entirely correct, but I think that there's like, if you can eat from, Jesus said, I have food that you know not that I eat that you know not of, that we can also be in that state as well. And I think that there's many that have experienced that. And so that is kind of something to think about. So when I'm like reading the Bible, I'm getting fed a different way than when I did when I was 27, than when I did when I was 17, than when I did when I was super young. Now it's like even more filling, it's more meaty. It's not just milk. Now it's like the meat of the word, and it's delicious. Put that in a reel and smoke it. Just kidding. So we're coming to understand that we're not just these earthly beings, that we are these multidimensional beings that are connected to the earthly heavenly, or sorry, the heavenly places, that we can go back and forth. So Adam was the first son, and then Christ is the second. So Adam, what happened with Adam? Adam came from, he was born of God. God put him in Eden. So not only was he able to commune with God and the spiritual, but he was also like naming everything in Eden. That was his job, his authority. And then when the fall happened, now we needed to have a sacrificial lamb, a savior come, and so that's where Jesus comes in. And he came, he's the second, son of God. He was there from the beginning, which means that he was transcending time. So time is not linear. So when I say it's an illusion, it truly is. But when we're looking at being multidimensional beings, like not only did Christ come down here, he is the gate to show us the way back up to where we were, because we are fallen, and now we're getting back up. And now is the time that we are getting back up and going back into that spiritual heavenly place, and doing the responsibility and having the authority. And this is why it's already written, like, that Satan does not win. He does not win. So there's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, the only thing to be afraid of is not fulfilling this duty that we have. And you'll know when you're not doing it, um, or at least I hope you do. um, and if you think that you are, like, just having that relationship and that communion with God daily, so that you're getting that information, is going to be important. Fruits of the spirit are the most fulfilling. Absolutely. Like, and when you're eating it. And it's pretty incredible and amazing. Okay, what do we have? An hour 30. Okay, well, we have 4 people here, and so I think I've gone through most of the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining. Um, I'm trying to think of the next spot that I want to go. We were going to do that verse. And I think that kind of ends my discussion as far as my notes are concerned. Um, but I just want to conclude that we are multidimensional beings, and we have an amazing technology already. We don't have to have it installed. Um, maybe we have to have it installed and uninstalled. I don't know. Turn it off and turn it back on. Um, we already have this amazing technology inside of ourselves. And so when we access that, um, we will start to see more things. So I really want to get that. just because we can be at a higher frequency, at a higher, um, like our emotions will be at a higher level, that does not necessarily mean that that is the way to go to heaven, because it's not of any works that we do. We almost have to kind of lay our our own lives down at the mercy seat of Christ to get to that next level. We have to let go of the things that we think we have to do here on earth and go to Christ at his mercy seat and ask him for mercy and forgiveness, and and then put ourselves in his um to do whatever his whatever God's will is in our lives. And I think once we start to get there and start continually asking the same thing and having that same desire, then we will start to get the message of, okay, here's what I need you to do. Um, and I think King David's life is a very good place to look at at how he kind of acted in his life, because he, was in God's good graces, and he took Bathsheba and killed Uriah. And that was like this whole, I'm telling you, it's like this rise and fall in his life. And you can kind of look at the rise and fall in his life. And he was God's chosen, like his beloved, like God loved him very much. And you can read the Psalms and see like some of the feelings that he was going through. And you'll see this beautiful, almost musical piece of his life through those Psalms. Um, and um, and he was still he was still working to God's ends. He was still working for the glory of God. And he did that up until the end of his life. And he was blessed for it. And everyone knows who King David is. Um, so yeah, well, I hope this wasn't this is just like the beginning, and it's so heavy, and I hope that you guys appreciate it. I know that I have Pepe here. He's kind of just doing his thing. But I hope you guys were rewarded with some deliciousness. Like I said, take what you take what you can chew on, and then leave the rest. And if something doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. It doesn't mean that there's not value in the message. And I'm not here to tell you how to do one thing or another. I'm just here to share my experiences as testimony, because I think these stories are so important to helping you develop into a closer connection with Christ. Um, Jerusha said, yes, I was totally thinking about King David while you were speaking earlier on Sons of God. Jesus was from the seed of David. Amazing and beautiful. Yes. Oh my gosh. I used to get so bored. I'm like, why are they telling us the genealogies? Like, for real? And now I understand of why that's there. The genealogies are important. I think one of the most important things to understand is not only are we adopted, but we gain the inheritance of eternal life in the heavenly realms, in the heavenly places. And there's so many promises to us that are in the Bible. And I've been very bold in saying that the religions right now, I'm not saying like all churches, but just major religions right now are a death cult. If they're showing you Christ dead, um, or threatening you with hell, um, and not giving you the comfort and compassion that somebody who's been through some really extreme situations should be giving you, um, then they're worshiping death. If they're telling you that you have to wait until you die to go to heaven, They're worshiping death. That's not true. We can go to heaven right now and petition God in the courts, just like um, Satan does right now, just like Jesus did, and go to those courts and ask that God send his angels to have to take care of things that we need. He's not going to leave you or forsake you, and if you truly believe that, he won't. Port Bear says, "Great stream, thanks. It's nice to watch on YouTube and turn it on the TV. Watched with the wife, and she enjoyed it too. Have you seen the quote hidden end quote message in the genealogy lists? Have you seen the hidden message? Um, I don't think so. I would love to be illuminated with whatever hidden message is there. Um, one of the cool one of the cool messages or one of the cool genealogies that I am fascinated by is that there's two women that were not Hebrew at all that are included. It was Rahab and Ruth, I believe, that were included in the genealogy of Christ. And so I think that's kind of a neat thing because it just shows that Gentiles are also thought of um, when we're looking at inheritance. And so it's just a beautiful thing to have. So I think the next one, I'll kind of work on thinking about my next topic, but I'll see if I can actually appropriately do the do the stream thing appropriate. I think I was supposed to like multi-stream the way I had it set up. So I'm like I said, I'm still learning, and I had a couple people that reached out to me about creating a website or teaching me how to create websites, and so thank you guys. Um, Jusha says, I know what you're talking about. The meaning of the first group of names is a message, allegedly. Is it the one in Matthew or Luke? The book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Thank you, Fearless. Fearless is amazing. He's my first bear friend. And he always calls me Cooper Bear. It's funny. Um, I'm not entirely certain. Message me. I'm very curious. I love Bible gravy. So any information that I can get from it is like that's my jam right now. um yeah, I think I've kind of talked about a lot. Um so we kind of like worked with developing a stable foundation, which is so key. I definitely recommend getting a solid foundation so that when you start to discover new things or new things come to you, it's not such a shock to you. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, Port Bear sends it to me. Um, so we worked on like that foundation and then the balance. Um, I guess I have one more balance story that I can share. So I tend to like overthink things and start to worry about like certain things. And so one of the things that I learned this year as I was doing some really strong inward work is that I am very analytical, and that's very like a masculine trait, super analytical. Like I will deep dive and um, I can have very nerdy conversations with autists and like really be like interested, genuinely interested in it because I'm like, you're literally I can't do what you're doing right now, but you're just like literally telling me all this information that is just fascinating to me. But then alternatively, I'm a very emotional woman. And being like deeply emotional, like I kind of just will fly off the handle or just not fly off the handle, but like just be really animated and dramatic and all this stuff. So I have this like like really extreme differences of like being. And so when I get really uncomfortable in my emotions, I'm like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go be analytical and just like analyze it and like try to figure it out." Or if like I'm being really analytical, I'm like, "Oh man, you really need to be this way." And so so I finally was like, "Oh, if I just really remain balanced and grounded and calm, I know that I'm able to access both parts of myself and then return to this homeostasis level of like ground zero to be really chill and still have this unique ability to be able to go into a situation and have like an extremely analytical conversation with somebody, or I can go into a situation and just really be um, in my feels and like either have a good time or whatever it is. It's just really funny. Jerusha said, "That's funny because I used to call you Cooper in my brain at the very beginning, but I got over that." I'm like, "Fearless. It's okay. It's quite all right. It's funny." Um, so if you are the same way and you're like, "Oh man, I really relate to that," and I've experienced where like I just feel really like I'm overanalyzing, overthinking, whatever, or maybe just like overly emotional about a certain thing. Um, just realize like if you're able to go back and forth and you really feel kind of like in balanced in that, that you can find a balance and an equilibrium. And that is going to make you like when I realized that there was such a peace that came over me, I was like, oh, okay, like it's almost a superpower. So I really um, have been really trying to change the way that I view myself and like some of the weird abilities that I have as not being wrong, but as being just like that's a gift for other people to experience or for me to kind of have a nice balance because I think that's we really want to have that calm in the storm. And so now I feel like I'm right in the eye of a storm at all times because it really does feel like a storm sometimes. Um, well, I'll give it like 2 more minutes or 1 more minute, a couple more minutes if anybody else wants to pop a question in the chat or wants to make a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off and I will see you guys next week, and I'll have another topic. Okay, translate the names in order. Adam, Seth, Enoch, Keenan. Translate the names in order. Okay, I'm writing it down. Like translate them into what the names mean. Not Keenan Mitchell, though. Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down teaching that his death shall bring the despairing rest. This is the alleged translation. Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down teaching that his death shall bring the despairing rest. from Genesis. Oh, from Genesis. Okay, so Adam, Seth, Enoch, Kenan, Mahael, Jared. Oh, Enosh. Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. Hmm. Death shall bring the despairing rest. That is some serious gravy. I'm gonna have to consider. I'm gonna go look at the Hebrew now. It's one of my favorite things. All right, awesome, you guys. It's been an hour 45. I love you guys so much. I hope this was something that you can digest and was really valuable to you. And um, if you guys have any questions and you don't want to put it in the comment section, I understand. Just put it in an email form or send me a DM if you're friends with me on IG or Bear Target Times. Or you can obviously email me too. Um, Thank you so much for joining me for part two, episode two. Um, I am doing a group coaching, which is going to be targeted at helping people to develop their self worth and really work in targeting some of the things that we're talking about today, and really just kind of analyzing where you're at to see where we can kind of move you along a little faster if you feel like you're not going anywhere, you feel stuck. This is mostly for those people. It's a group session. It's limited to 10 people right now because that's about all I can handle energetically. It's 4 weeks, 4 sessions. They're going to be about 2 hour sessions, and they're going to be like this, where we're going to listen to your story, and then we're going to listen to other stories and really kind of relate and see if we can't take you from where you're at and maybe bounce you up into another level, whether it's your career, whether it's your personal life or your spiritual life, and um, bounce you up and just kind of get you on an action plan of, okay, here's where we want you to go. um, I'm very good at the career stuff, so if you guys need that help, then that's great. um, I really recommend that you do that. It's called Who Am I? And it was a brainchild from a couple months ago of really kind of me looking at like some of the things that the prophets would say or the priests would say is like, who am I that God would choose me? Or who am I that God even thinks of me? And we kind of like work through that kind of stuff to develop some self worth and really get you on the path of where you need to go. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know. And more than happy to add you. But like I said, there's only um, 10 people maximum. So it is limited. And it's priced at a point that I think is something that's affordable for people, because I think a lot of people, um, it's hard that they're overpriced. And so I want to be able to help you guys if you feel led to do that. And let's see, I am on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook and you can't find me, let me know. Um, it's Amelie Chavez, but I have a couple business or pages or something like that. Not business, but pages or groups. And I do post videos there periodically. And then obviously I'm on IG, so follow me there if you would like. That is a bears only. So if you're not a bear, I'm probably not going to let you in. So find me on Facebook, or definitely subscribe to this um, channel and you'll get the updates. All right, guys, I love you so much. Merry Christmas. Please enjoy the time with your family. And I may do another live in between, but it won't be a long form episode like this. and just to kind of hang out and see how everyone is doing and maybe get some inspiration for some other streams where things kind of come up because I kind of listen to what's going on in the groups. So, all right, cheers, everyone, and I'm gone. Have a Merry Christmas.